All right, here we got Charge and Hayner present Zoom the TBT, and our guest tonight is GM Chris Thomas of the Primetime Players. Chris, what's going on?
Hey guys, how y'all doing today?
Doing good.
Doing fantastic. Hey, Chris, thanks for jumping on. Hey, before we get into the TBT, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the Primetime Players, kind of semi-pro minor league basketball history. You guys have been around for a long, long time. So tell us how this team started and originated and where you've been and up to today.
Okay, well, this year is our 30th season overall. I started in 1991, and this is our 30th year. And we had just had a Hall of Fame. We had a Hall of Fame ceremony on our home opener this year in the ECBL, where we had 5 guys come back over the last 30 years that played with us, that we inducted into the Hall of Fame for our home opener. But originally, we started off as I showed up at the YMCA and signed up with a team, and they were terrible. And I'm like, man, I could put my own team together. And I did that for 2 or 3 years. But then, I've always been competitive and played sports coming up. So I kind of put a team together of all the best players I could get. And we started traveling to Charlotte, and that started in like the mid 90s. And then by 2001, we were playing about 100 games a year. And back then you could play all the Division II and Division III schools, because they didn't have that where they were getting those big checks. They were always looking for exhibition games. And so we had a bunch of those, and then we got in the Pro-Am, and then we played in a bunch of tournaments and stuff. And I had a guy come to me from the Continental Basketball League, and they were starting up a league called the Tobacco Road Basketball League. And I was one of the first 4 owners in that. And I helped start that. And that was in 2011, and that was my first year in minor league. And then I haven't looked back since we started.
Yeah, it's really interesting too hearing about it, because one of the great joys of this podcast for Charge and I has been that we get to discuss basketball at all of its levels. And really great ball is played in semi-pro tourneys and leagues all around the nation. So can you talk a little bit about what the ECBL is about, and like what it's like from a fan perspective to watch an ECBL game?
Well, it's like a mini NBA game. We play, some teams have a lot more fanfare than others. Some you'll go to, and it is, if you've seen the movie Semi-Pro, it can be like that. You can go to some games and there might be more people on the benches and working than there at the games. But I've had games where I've had 400 people, 500 people at a game, and we'll play the game to a packed house. We have a little cheerleading team. We have the introductions just like everything else. We have an announcer at all of our games. And we also live stream our games too. We have live stream games. We have an all-star game at the end of the year. And we have 12 teams that make the playoffs. It's when you come to one of our games, it's just like if you're coming to the TBT, just on a lower scale. We're not going to have, like Capital City when we came up there and played and you couldn't get in the gym. It's not going to be like that. But, we do put on a good production. I have, there's a lot of our games that are online, under the East Coast Basketball League on YouTube and with NetCat Sports that we're contracted with now. But, it's a good atmosphere. We have some really good teams in our league too. There's a lot of pro guys come home from overseas. They usually get here in, the end of April, maybe in May, and then they're all jumping on teams. And by the time you get to the playoffs, you've got teams that's got 4 or 5 overseas pros that are playing on the playoffs, and anybody can win it once we get to the playoffs.
All right, yeah. The one thing you haven't mentioned yet is your record in the last 8 years is ridiculous.
It's not bad. It's not bad at all.
No, just a little good. So last 8 years, 92 wins and 8 losses between the Tobacco Road League and the East Coast Basketball League.
It sounds like a communist country election results. What it sounds like. It sounds like it sounds like what Putin gets elected by in Russia.
And only championships.
Yeah, if you count the playoffs total, we're in this season we're 122-8 over the 9-year total. Yeah.
No, that's insane. And so I think that's one of the things as we start to, go towards the TBT conversation a little bit that makes you guys very competitive every year. So a good portion of the guys that play TBT, I know there's some other minor league teams that will come into TBT and, maybe 1 or 2 of their guys play in the league and then the rest are brought in. But you're the other way around if I'm not misunderstanding you. More than half your guys or more play in the ECBL and then you bring them right into the TBT tournament?
Yeah, all of our players play in the TBT. I mean the ECBL, and then this year, we added Robert Thomas Turner the third. We added him, and right now he's the only one that's not on our active ECBL roster.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting too. Like, can you talk a little bit about how cohesive, like, because a lot of teams get thrown together, like Chargers talking about, like, what is the advantage of having a team that maybe might be a little outgunned if there's a lot of like former NBA players and high Euro pros, but does playing together kind of act as a great equalizer when you're in a knockout tournament?
I think it does because, I mean, my guys have, we've played so many games together. I mean, I know Sean Barnett and Chris Moore, which are two of our better players. They've been together since 2012. And I mean, we play roughly, I think last year we played 100 total games last year. This year, we haven't played as many, but I mean, we play at least 100 games a year every single year since 1999. So we play a ton of games, because we play in the city leagues. We play in the Myers Park League. We might jump into a Y League, play some open tournament leagues. So not just the ECBL, we're playing a ton of games and everything else, also leading up to the ECBL and the TBT.
Yeah, I mean, hearing that, like the YMCA thing, like I would be really scared to see a team like yours at my Y. I mean, I play a lot of ball, and I walk you guys, and I'm just like, you got to be fucking kidding me, seriously. Like, what the hell?
And we do have that sometimes too, but PSF, which has been in the TBT, and they made it to the Super 16 a couple years ago. They're one of the teams here that are locally, and we played them in the championship. Matter of fact, we just beat them in March for the championship at that Y. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 A-level teams where all the guys are like former college guys, and some are home from pro ball and stuff like that. So it's not the typical YMCA. We wouldn't play in something to where we're beating somebody by 50 or 60. My guys would quit if we did that.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned ECBL has other teams that look to get into the TBT, and including Hickory Hoyas, which I know you know them well. Good folks out there playing.
Shout out to Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff was on last week, and so he admitted he hasn't beat you in the ECBL yet, but the word on the street, he smacked you around a little bit in some tournaments?
Not some. He beat me one time in one tournament on a buzzer beater, and this was one of those country tournaments. Like, I think the guy that was keeping the score had fallen asleep, and I had to get him removed from the table, and the guy threw a hot dog at me when they were moving him from the table. So, I mean, that kind of tells you, how the thing was being ran. But they did beat us, and I mean, it was a good game. But in the ECBL, it's been a different story for him when we played him.
92-8, yeah. The results talk there. Each championship.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. This is the kind of team we need in this tournament too, because the local color's pretty funny. Talking about the TBT too, you guys have 5 wins. Charge did the research here. He's much smarter than me. But just 2 years ago, Super 16, Bradley Big X, and lost to Carmen's in the Super 16. So, I mean, like, what kind of run, what has enabled you to make these runs in the past?
I think that, it's just the guys knowing each other, and believing in each other. We've got a good group of guys, and they buy in. And that's the biggest thing, is that, like, I don't know if I could do the TBT if I went out and got a bunch of guys that don't play for me or don't know the players on the team. I pretty much want to have the guys going in that we know each other, we're ready to play. And if we add 1 or 2 pieces, it's not going to make a difference to the way we play. Those guys are going to come in and fit in. We've got a good history, so when they come in, they want to play with us. And that's the biggest things that we're looking at. And I mean, we've made good runs because, our guys come to play. And I mean, we know each other. And I mean, some of these teams have bigger names, got bigger players, but our guys, know what to do when it needs to be done to, to win some of these games that, people didn't give us a chance to win.
Yeah. So before we move on, I want to definitely talk about that Elam ending in a second up there in Columbus. But before, what really led you to take your shot into TBT? So you had this highly successful franchise out there in the Carolinas, and what led you to the TBT? And then obviously first year in, you guys had a lot of success, and sounds like you've been hooked ever since. So what led you here?
Well, there were 2 other teams here in our area called the Charlotte Elite and Hoop for Life. They were 2 teams that were here local, and they both applied for the first season, and neither one of them got in. And the first year, I really didn't know what the TBT was, and I kind of found out about it late. And once I found out what it was and I watched it, I was like, next year we're going to apply to get in there. And, and it was tough. We had to get them by votes the first year, and we had 24 teams in each region the first year. And so we ended up getting enough votes to where we were a top 8 seed and got a bye. But our bye, we ended up having to play the number 1 seed overall, which was Brothers at Ball.
Josh Selby's team. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We played them down in Clayton State, and I mean it was a great experience. But I just felt like the way we play and the type of game that we play, and when my guys, it was just like a reward for them to hey, let's go test ourselves and see what we could do. And I mean, really, we were just 2 seconds away from being able to play overseas elite in the Elite 8. We went to the Super 16 in DePaul, and they had hit a shot with like 11 seconds left, and then we got the ball and brought it in, and Sean Barnett brought the ball up, and he thought the game was tied, but we were down 1. He got the shot off late, and we ended up losing. But I mean, it was a tough loss, but it was a great experience for us. But it showed us that we could play with anybody, and we were we definitely wanted to come back. And every single year, my guys, we're talking about the TBT. The day the TBT's over, we're already talking about the next year and what we have to do to get ready to play.
Yeah, that's quite the run you had in 2015. If you mentioned you played Brothers at Ball, and then Dirty South, they were just a good team back in the early days. TBT, and then that would have been amazing to see Primetime players overseas elite in a true David versus Goliath matchup. That would have been amazing. But yeah, let's talk about that Elam ending. So that was up in Columbus, and you mentioned the Capitol Center. It was even crazier last year. I mean, the Capitol Center was, on fire the year you guys were there, but last year was insane when you put Dayton and Columbus together. It was wild. So I was there, and I remember watching this game, and I was just kind of, relaxed. I thought the game was over. I mean, to be honest with you, I think everyone thought the game was over. And then it's like, oh, there's a bucket. I'm probably checking my phone and seeing what's going on the other. Oh, there's another bucket. And the game's on. So tell us, how many points were you down at one point? And just take us back through that Elam ending as you remember it.
Well, I think at halftime we had made a small run, and we were down like 8 at halftime. But as soon as the second half started, they went on 11-0 run, and we were down 18. And then I think to start the fourth quarter, we were down 10. And then we just started playing defense, and we were down 10 when the Elam ending started, and we ended up outscoring them. But the biggest thing was, I think that even Nick had emailed me after the game telling me how incredible it was. We had like 11 straight possessions where we got to stop to end the game, and then we outscored them 11-0 over the end of the game to end up pulling it out, which was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the Elam ending is a really great thing, especially the teams that play really great defense, too. It gives them a chance to get back on that fouling and lets them prolong the game and really scrap back. It really is conducive to teams just sort of gutting out and really starting to find something within them. I want to talk a little bit, though, just about being sort of a minor league basketball legend. I've actually heard you described as an organizing legend of minor league basketball. And one of the great challenges of being a TBT GM is really the organizational aspect. You're trying to get a bunch of players there, a bunch of players with the logistics. And since you're frankly so good at the organizational aspect, like what advice would you have for a TBT GM who is looking to start a team? Because you've done such a good job of getting a team that was relatively unknown in the tournament most every year. What would it mean? Like, how are you able to do that? What organizationally do you have going for you?
I think the biggest thing is that, the guys and the basketball players in this area, they trust me, and they, from what, I do a lot of organizing for the local city leagues and stuff here too. I get all the guys together to make sure we're ready to play in that. And then all the pro guys, like we have 2 pro-ams that are being organized now, and both of them are calling me to help them figure out ways to set things up and seeing if we would be interested in playing a couple games against them and some showcases and stuff like that. So I have a ton of connections, but the biggest thing is that, I don't promise these guys anything that I'm not going to be able to give them. I'm going to give all the guys that play with me a equal opportunity to play. And when we talked to Robert Turner, when I offered him a spot, I told him exactly what we were expecting out of him and what we were looking for in a player to add to our team. And he was happy to hear that. And one of the things that kind of helped me was that he knows all the guys from the teams in Augusta, the teams from Atlanta that are in our league. And, he's heard good things about us, which, they might be some stories in there too, but, he, talking to me, he seemed really, happy and gracious that I would even call him and ask him to play. And I mean, that's the biggest thing is the guys that I have on my team, I have good character guys and good players to where the guys want to play with them too. So I don't have a guy that's going to come in there and flip out or be an ass or something like that. So, when
basketball
they say,
players never do that. Basketball players never do that.
Oh, yes, they do. I've been there. Believe me.
Like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Yeah, they do. Hey,
Yeah.
before we get into your roster a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about the COVID situation. Obviously, a lot of what's going on is yet to be determined. A lot of TBT's plan has yet to be determined. But what you see online is a lot of major league sports trying to, come up with these bubbles and being able to sequester players prior to them playing for the safety of themselves and the players and, the folks that are able to get in watch these games. So I know a lot of the minor league teams, your guys play basketball, but they have day jobs. So the current situation, if they had to turn to some type of a bubble like some other pro sports teams, leagues are talking about, do you have any concerns with being able to field a full team?
Oh, no, I won't have any problem with putting the full team together. I've already let them know some of the all the stuff that, we talked about on the calls about what some of the scenarios that could or couldn't happen and, that how we could be at an extended, time at a certain place. And all my guys are ready to go, so when they do the selection, if we're picked, we definitely won't be one of the teams that have a problem with that. We'll have all our same guys there. But like you were saying, not knowing what's going on from, around here, I just know today that North Carolina said that there's no gyms available for us here for the next. We started phase 2 for 4 weeks. There's no gyms. And then in South Carolina, we have no gyms either. And we were planning on trying to restart the ECBL on June 6th, but that basically has killed, our season. So, we've got a board meeting on Friday to try to decide what we're going to do about our season continuing on. But it doesn't look good because we were going to have to start June 6th just to be able to finish.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it's really messing up a lot of plans right now, which that's why it makes the TBT such a nice event because it's going to give us all a respite from what's going on, hopefully. This is natural. We'll go into the seating, actually, talking about the COVID because, and we agreed, we released our bracketology today. We're taping Wednesday the 20th, but so this will probably be released next week, probably Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. But we did the seating, and we both, Charge and I, agree that Primetime and 64, Primetime's safe, right? They're a safe team at 64. We think that, right? Right, Vince? 64,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
safe.
yeah. Okay, I ask you a question, Chris. I'm reading my notes here and zoning out. Don't
No,
mind
that's fine.
me,
I'm sorry about that. But we're talking about this, like, 32 teams gets a little dicier, and we literally had you guys at number 32. So what is the reason that the TBT selection committee, which to be clear, we're not on, would be good to pick Primetime? I can think of a few, but I'd rather hear you explain it. Why should Primetime be in a hypothetical 32-team tournament?
Well, I think we should be in the 32 teams because, 100. One of the things that, Dan has always pushed is that he wants a team that's got a fan base. He wants a team that's going to be there that they can count on. And then he wants a quality product. And all three of those are exactly what we are. If you look at the teams that we've lost to, we've lost to Train to Go, which made a run to the Super 16. We lost to VCU, who went to the Elite 8 that year. We lost last year to Florida TNT, which might have been the second best team in our region behind Hines, which they were an excellent team. And this year, y'all have them as a number 1.
We do.
And then, we lost to Ohio State. So, we're not going out there losing to, bad teams. When we get knocked off, it takes a lot to get us out of the tournament. We're not going to get beat by, one of these teams that are just sneaking in. You got to bring a good team to knock us out. But I don't think we're going to get knocked out. I think, this year, we've been close enough. I'm thinking, we're going there to win. We're not going there just to participate or just to give somebody a good run.
Call your shot, man. Call your shot.
Yeah, so let's talk about your roster a little bit. I think what's interesting is, you're bringing back basically the same team as last year. And I didn't go back in history, but I'm sure it's a lot of the same people that were the year before. And you got Sean Barnett, Chris Moore, and Terrell Smith, who have played every single game with you in the TBT. So how's the roster looking this year for you? Are you comfortable these guys are ready to make that next run? Or are you looking to make any additions, subtractions to the team this season?
We do have just about everybody coming back from the whole roster from last year. Eric Mann, he's going to be coaching this year. If we're able to have him in there, he's not going to play this year. He'll coach. And Terrell Smith is no longer with the team. Terrell does some training and has a lot of stuff outside of basketball going on. And just the time where he can't be there with us all the time and do all the practicing. He was great for us. He did some great things with us. And, we did a lot of great things together. But, with the commitment wise, I know he wants to be there, but it would be hard for him to be able to commit to everything that, we're trying to do, during the year and in the ECBL and leading up. And he knows that, when we go in toward all that, we need guys that are there all the time. So, there's nothing against him because, he was a great player for us. But bringing in Robert Turner III, I think that he's going to be a huge addition. He played at Texas Tech, and he was the MVP this year in France, playing over there. And, he's an explosive guard. And he's familiar with Ricardo and a couple of our big guys. He's played some AAU ball with them. So bringing him in brings us a guy that can kind of get to the basket a little bit more too. We got a bunch of shooters, but, Robert can also shoot it. But he's a guy that can get to the basket. And I think he's going to complement Sean and Chris really well. And we're bringing in a couple of our younger guys too that have, we didn't let play last year that developed. We got Zarik Lolar, and then we're looking at James Murray coming in too. But those guys, will be, I don't know how much, those guys will contribute, but I'm expecting every guy that we can play can play. James has been huge for us in our league. And then Lolar averages like 28 points in the ECBL right now. So he's a knockdown shooter, and Murray's a ball handling shooting, point guard. So those guys are good. But other than that, the same group from last year, all there.
Yeah, no, when I was looking up these guys, Turner, he shot 43% over in France this year from three. Zolar, 40% career at Wingate, and sounds like he's still doing good things in the CBL.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, definitely got to backfill some of that 3-point. And, I won't touch on Terrell too much because he won't be with you, but you definitely had the green light with him. So I can't let my stat go to waste since I already had it teed up. I wasn't aware he wasn't playing this year, but he by far leads the TBT in 3-point attempts per game. He's the only person over 10 3-point attempts per game, a minimum of 6 games. And he was awesome to see, fun guy to watch play, so wish him the best as he's out there. And we won't go into story, but my understanding, he got a chance to go out on the All-Star court in Charlotte and help them set up the cameras and shooting and some different things down in Charlotte. So pretty cool stuff that he's had a chance to be involved with.
Oh yeah, he had the NBA when they came here. They had one of the guys that I'm friends with had contacted me and asked me could some of our players, and DeAndre Pratt had went and did the slam dunk contest, and then and he also did the 3-pointer, but he didn't shoot as good as Terrell did in that. But Terrell did a good job in that. But
I heard he knocked him down.
Yeah. Oh, now, like you were saying, attempts. Now he takes a lot of threes. He played a lot of games with us, and I know. You said 10 3-pointers a game. There's been games where he's shot 20 3-pointers in a game and not shot any twos.
That's a lot of shots.
He took a lot of shots. But this year, I think, though, with Chris and Sean, those guys, Chris has been the best player in our minor league basically for the last 7 years. Chris has been the MVP 5 times in our league. And, he's an incredible player. And him and Sean, I think them getting a little bit more shots and, and spreading it out a little bit more, that might help us out a little bit more this year.
Right.
That makes sense. So when you're watching primetime players, and, a lot of TB fans will know about teams that – have an alumni, character. They play a certain way under a certain coaching staff. What do you guys try to run from a style of play perspective on offense and defense? And what can fans expect of a brand of basketball out of you guys for first-time watchers and viewers?
Well, we're very up tempo. We get the ball, we're pushing it up, and it's kind of bad, that we don't always take the layup. There's a lot of times we'll push that thing up, and our guys are going to pull a 3. It might have a layup and they'll pull up and play a 3, but our guys, if they take a bad shot, they're going to make up for it on that end. And, and my big guys, I got a couple good bruisers. We got some good defenders. And the biggest thing is you're going to see a team that's going to play together. We're going to share the ball. The guys are going to support each other. The guys are going to play for each other. And, and the main thing is they're going to go out there and not stop until, the clock's at zeros, and we're going to be planning on winning every single game we're playing.
Yeah, so you mentioned we talked about your bracket in particular in West Virginia. We think you're going to get a nice strong seed there and should be in the top 32 situation if we power ranked it. But curious, just because I know you're a student of the game and really follow the TBT and the other teams, the GMs, what new teams are coming out? And I think you said you watched our bracketology that came out today. So what new teams are you keeping an eye on that you think can make some waves this year in TBT?
Well, I haven't really been, the newer teams. I saw some of like the Southern Smokies, they're in our group. I think y'all had them right outside, was one. But, the ones I've been, looking at are the ones that are making the big moves, like you've got Florida TNT, Tampa 2020, teams like that down in Florida that, that I'm familiar with, that, I've known for a long time, that, just seeing those guys, some of these big names that they're adding, and I'm just looking at, how are we going to match up if we get to play these guys? And then the one team signed, Jacory, and we had went after him, 2 years ago. I tried to get him to play with us, and I was super surprised that Team Arkansas got him. And then they got CJ too, and I talked to CJ in the past too, and he's a good solid player. And I mean Keith usually puts together a pretty good roster. He's a pretty good recruiter. But it's something though, when you look around at so many of these teams, I see some players that played on one team and now they're playing on another, and there's so many good players in this tournament. I mean, you can go and not even know who a guy is, but you'll know who they are after the game by the performances they put out there. I mean, there's so many good teams, and we probably don't even have. There's probably a handful of teams that haven't even applied yet that probably be popping up over here the next couple of weeks too.
Well, definitely. Overseas Elite, Golden Eagles. There's some teams. I know there's a team, what was it, Heartfire, I believe?
Heartfire, yeah.
Heartfire, yeah, the Valpo kids. There's a bunch of people coming in. So the tournaments, we've been following for a long time. You've been playing it for a long time. It's a really rich event that gives a lot of people a narrative to follow. You guys have had some really big moments as a squad. What is your favorite memory? And we'll end it here, but what's your favorite memory of the TBT as a GM?
I think it would be when we knocked off HBC, when we beat them in Atlanta. It was our second round game to qualify to go to Chicago. And we did the press conference, and it was Pierre Steins and Sean Burnett. We were in there, and just being with the guys in there and just seeing how much it meant to them, and seeing those guys choked up, and their kids were in there while we were doing the interview and stuff. And because to me, it's not about, I'd love it because of the competition, but I do this for them, and it was reward for them, for us getting in there, and for them guys seeing how much it meant to them. And every single one of those players were the same players that we played with all year long. And I mean, it was emotional, and I mean, it meant a lot to me, and to be able to do that for them. And then for me, I grew up being a Ray Myers fan, so going to DePaul was a big deal for me too. So I mean, I think that was the biggest thing, knowing that, hey, we can play with anybody, when we were able to make it to Chicago.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good spot to close for today. I mean, just I think telling about your team, we talked about how cohesive you guys are, and you're thinking of your guys, putting them first, putting their experience first, and I think that's what makes you such a successful general manager and franchise with primetime players. So let's wrap it up there. East Coast basketball legends, 92-8. You heard Chris call his shot. He's taking home the $2 million this year in TBT 2020. So look forward to what you guys can do this season.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me on.